Welcome to the Golf Improvement Podcast, episode 129.
Welcome to the podcast for golf lovers and enthusiasts who are looking to take their games to new heights. Dedicated to custom club fitting, short game improvement, and effective practice to improve your golf game. This is the Golf Improvement Podcast with your host, Tony Wright.
Hello, this is Tony Wright from Game Improvement Golf in Oak Ridge, Tennessee with the Golf Improvement Podcast, dedicated to sharing useful information on true custom club fitting, short game improvement, and effective practice techniques. I create exceptional golf clubs. You shoot lower scores. Well, thank you all for being back here. And those of you who are new, thank you for being here. It has been quite a 6 weeks for me, but more on that later. Let's get to this great podcast interview. In early May, I found on a social media post about Craig Isabel, a golf teaching professional who is a master fluid motion factor instructor. Many of you know that I've done 2 interviews with Stephen Yellen, who's the developer of the fluid motion factor program, and that I also did the training to become a fluid motion factor certified instructor. The fluid motion factor's a neurophysiological process in the mind that every golfer has to experience in order to produce a fluid golf swing. While learning directly about what Craig does to teach the fluid motion factor seemed like a great way to let you all know more about this terrific approach to improving your game, and also to help me to get a little smarter. So I asked Craig to do an interview, and he was enthusiastic about doing so. There are many gems in this interview to help you to play better golf and to enjoy your game more. So enjoy this interview with Craig Isabel.
www.gameimprovementgolf.com.
Hello, this is Tony Wright with episode 129 of the Golf Improvement Podcast. My guest today is really going to be an interesting interview. It's going to be great today. Craig Isabel, who is currently a teaching professional at, I guess it's the Touche Performance Golf location based in Fort Wayne, Indiana. But most important for today, Craig is one of 3 master instructors of the Fluid Motion Factor program, which was developed by Steve Yellen. And some of you have heard about this before on my podcast. Craig originally came from England. He moved to the United States in 2006, attended Weber International University, where he played on the WIU golf team and captained the team to 2 national championships and won 4 individual titles, as well as Sun Conference Player of the Year in 2008. He played on a number of mini tours, and related to our topic today, he developed an interest in the mental side of golf. Like many, he was intrigued with inconsistencies in games, why swing thoughts are short-lived, work on one hole, not the next, why golfers can't take their driving range swing to the course, something we all understand. And his findings led him to, running into Steve Yellen, who we'll talk about how that happened, and learning about the Fluid Motion Factor program, which is a terrific program that teaches golfers how to access what they already own. He's taught it to beginners, college teams, and elite tour professionals, and he uses that program as the foundation of his instruction. So, Craig, I first heard about the fact that you're a master instructor from one of Steve's Facebook posts, and I thought this would really be great to talk to you. So after that long-winded introduction, welcome, and I look forward to hearing from you today.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, Tony. I'm excited to talk about it.
Yeah. Well, I told a little bit about your personal story, but maybe talk a little bit about what led you to be a PGA professional and a little bit about where you are now, and then we'll talk a little bit about how you met Steve and some of the elements of Fluid Motion Factor.
Yeah, so like you mentioned, I came to the States to play college golf from London, England. Played 4 years at Weber. It was a great 4 years. I graduated in 2010 and turned professional straight away and just tried to play full-time on the mini tours. And then met Stephen Yellin in 2014 through kind of unfortunate circumstances. I was struggling with my game and I needed help. I read a random social media post from him and kind of perked my interest, and I got in touch with Stephen, and the rest is history. We become great friends, and he taught me the program. I went through the instructional, the professional, the teaching part of the program, and the playing parts. I got to see both sides, and then began the PGA Professional, or the PGA of America program 2 years ago. Just wanted to broaden my horizons and try to add as much to my resume as I possibly could. And the PGA is a great way to do that. Great playing opportunities, and it can only help your career. It's been great so far.
So did you meet Steven at like the PGA show? I mean, that's where I first met him and took I took a 3-hour class that he did, or did you just decide, whoa, I've got to go down there and go see him directly, I guess, at the David Ledbetter Academy? Or how did that happen?
Yeah, well, that was one of the great things that Stephen and I had going for us, was we were both living in Orlando, and while I was playing the mini tours, I was in Orlando, and 20 minutes from him. So it turned out I would go visit him weekly. He taught me the program, so I learned it over the 3 days at Champions Gate, one-on-one, which was just career-changing. And then after that, I just gained so much from it. I wanted to learn more, and he and I would stay in contact regularly, and I would go and watch him teach the program to many students, and a couple of them PGA Tour players, Web.com players. It was amazing to witness that.
Now, I'm trying to remember. I think it was like 3 years ago that I was at, I can't remember where it was, but he did that 3-hour class. You may have even been there if you were going to. Who's the guy he partnered with? Goodness gracious, one of the teaching professionals down there besides David Ledbetter. I'm drawing a blank. Well, that's old.
McCord.
Yes.
McCord.
Yeah, it was McCord.
Right.
So
right.
You may have been there and I didn't realize that. So
right.
Wow, that's great.
Yeah.
Well, you talked a little bit about meeting him and learning about fluid motion factor. Talk a little bit about what you see as the most important benefits for golfers to adopt that in their golf games. And, I had this thought this morning when I wake up. Usually things like this happen. And it was, there's so many people out there that, even particularly PGA professionals who don't get to play much, right? And they think their game is going to deteriorate if they don't. And maybe they don't understand some of the possibilities that the things like the fluid motion factor could do to help them.
Yeah, that's a great point. And that's one of the reasons why I was drawn to it, because I would practice for 8 hours a day. And, I was married. I was married. I still am. And so I'd come home to my wife after practicing 8 hours, and I would still be analyzing my swing on my phone. And I was so, I was just way too involved in it. And, I was always under the impression that if I wanted to take my game to the next level, I had to practice 8 hours a day, and I had to groove the swing. Well, Stephen taught me that my swing's already grooved. So, and one of the aspects of the program, which is fantastic, is once a swing is grooved and you deposit enough reps in the muscle memory, which is stored in the brain, the swing is scientifically impossible for the swing to break down. So once you understand that and buy into that, you don't have to practice 8 hours a day. You practice smarter. You do you don't put all your eggs in one basket and think you have to dig it out of the dirt. So I got to spend more time at home with my wife, and I just became a lot more at ease with my game.
Yeah, I mean, that's
less of a grind.
Yeah. And who would have thought otherwise, right? I mean, we all do things on the basis of concepts. And the concept was always it'll change. I got to do it. I got to do it. I have a little situation going on right now because I had some surgery, and I'm not going to be able to play golf. I'm about a 7 or 8 handicap till early August. But it's really going to be interesting to go back because, my plan is to really pay attention to, some of the concepts from Steven's program and see what happens, right? And I expect I'm going to be able to play pretty darn good golf when I come back. So,
yeah, that's a great way to look at it. Just see what happens. That should be the goal of everyone when you tee it up. Let's see what happens, because that's ultimately the reality of golf. None of us are sure what's going to happen. So why do we act like we know what's going to happen? So it's interesting.
Yeah. So as I said, you are one of, and I don't know who the other two are, and love to find out, that 3 master instructors. I think you probably talked about most of what happened. I mean, did you have to do like a face-to-face teaching people, teaching some instructors or professionals or students things with Steven watching to become a master teacher? Because I think I can see that it would take a lot to really kind of get to the next level.
Yeah, I did. I taught it in front of Steven to 3 or 4, a college team, and then a couple of other individuals. He watched me, and just having his feedback, after every round I would call him. After every experience I had teaching it, I would call him, pick his brain, and see what he would have done differently, and then apply that to my next session. And it just got to the point where, I feel really comfortable teaching it. I fully understand the program and the purpose of it. And I think using it for my own game served me well towards becoming a master instructor of it.
Yeah. Well, share a little bit about then, you said you obviously do teach it, how you teach the fluid motion factor, and obviously we could talk for hours, but some of the elements of things related to full swing, but also putting, and a little bit about what golfers experience when you take them through that.
Yeah. Ultimately, as a whole, I see them begin to worry less about the swing. And it's funny because they come to me for swing instruction, but they walk away with less variables, I guess, and less layers. I think I try and take away layers more than I do add them. That's my goal. And it just teaches them to access deeper levels of the mind, which ultimately is responsible for hitting a good golf shot. When you access a deeper level of the mind, quieter, subtler level, you increase your chances of accessing what you already own. So first and foremost, I teach them how to access a deeper level of the mind, and then we just see a lot of my students come to me not with the intention of learning the fluid motion factor program. So I'll sneak it in, and then all of a sudden we're talking about now we're talking about the mind. But that's where I want to go, because that's the fundamental reason why we hit a good shot and a bad shot. It starts with processes in the mind.
Well, that's interesting. So for many people, you're not saying, well, guess what? We're going to do fluid motion factor as part of this lesson. You're sort of working it in, and all of a sudden they're seeing what happens, and they say, well, maybe we can get somewhere further down the road of playing great if we really go into this, right?
Exactly. And see, I haven't necessarily marketed myself as, I have marketed, but I'm not like to the point where Steven is, where I'm teaching the fluid motion factor to groups. I'm still just, I guess, classed as a swing instructor. So when they come to me, it's not a surprise, but I'll give the program in pieces to every student I have.
Yeah.
And it's just a great way to do that, because not everybody, we're in a day and age where we want tangible swing changes to go home with. We want drills to work on about the swing. Well, I understand the reason why the swing works. So that's my take on it. I start with the mind first.
And then in particular putting, I went back while I was sort of recuperating for the surgery I had and watched all the videos again, and the little drill that he does about, putting the putter down and walking and trying to walk through the putt. Is that one of the ones that you do, to help people to kind of quiet what's going on and all the agony that's going on when people putt?
Yeah, I do like that one. There's so many, and there's, he developed over 20 cues. We call them fluid cues.
Yeah.
I mean, he's probably got more than, he's just got so many of those. So they're all great, and they all achieve the same thing. The whole goal is to access quieter levels of the mind, infuse silence. So yeah, I do like that one. Another one I like for putting is in the transition between backstroke and through stroke, you just passively observe that you are in transition during that moment. And it's really kind of a mystical thing to hear, but try it. You while you're in transition, just observe that you are making the forward stroke. Just things like that, just very abstract thoughts, and they work really well.
Now, and there's another piece of this, Dan, and I'm really interested to hear your take on it, and that is, it's obvious for people to be euphoric in a lesson when they really see some of the things happen. I remember when I took the class and you hit, and I'm also a certified instructor too, but not at the level you are, but when you hit great shots, and I did this too on a recent golf trip where it was phenomenal. I mean, the level of things that I was doing, but taking it home and getting people to really implement things. Do you do any special things or give any special advice for them about, okay, what can you do in your house to do this, or when you're making small swings, or any kind of things like that? Do you understand what I'm saying? Because
yeah, absolutely.
Integrating it into how you play is sort of the final step, right?
Right. Well, so my whole argument once I learned the program was, if you don't know how to produce a good golf shot, or the fundamental reason why you hit a good golf shot, how can you practice repeating those good shots? So I compare it to working out at the gym. If you're not working out, you can't complain that you are not gaining muscle. So back to your point about at home, what can you do? Things like practicing accessing quieter levels of the mind. So through meditation, I try and teach the college students I work with simple meditation techniques. Just go home and train the brain. If you're doing 10 minutes a day of meditation, that's 10 minutes a day well spent trying to access what you already own. And that's what you need when you play. So I really think that the meditation is a key that goes hand in hand with the program. And I highly recommend it to anyone that wants to take their game to the next level.
Yeah, that's a great point. I do something. You ever hear of Headspace? You might have heard that.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that's a fantastic, pretty simple program to use, and there's a lot of them. So, well, in the Facebook post where I first learned about you, he talked about you winning a 90-player Indiana sectional event, and there was a quote in there: "All of my best rounds and shots begin with high levels of acceptance. Acceptance is where my swing is, of where my swing is, where I am in my career." That's an interesting part. No matter what it is, and what shots I am capable of hitting. So, talk a little bit about that event. Anything that just comes back to you about it and what you did? And maybe it was just business as usual, right? Because, well, not business as usual, because if you're going to access fluid motion, you got to do it with every shot, and it has to be new every time. So I'd love to hear a little bit about that event and kind of what went on there for you.
Yeah, all my best rounds feel the same, and they probably are the same for everyone. I don't try to fix the swing, or I don't try and fix any feeling during the round. So the whole acceptance thing that I posted there was referring to part of the program that Stephen calls staying on the couch. So once you learn the program and you go through the fluid cues, he explains that the best way to feel acceptance is, okay, you're just going to stay on the couch and watch things unfold. Well, during the round, that particular round I shot 68 and won by 2 shots. But I probably hit 5 good golf shots.
Wow.
The difference, the 5 years ago, I would have hit 3 or 4 bad shots to start with and then try to fix it. So now I'm trying to manufacture something during the round. And anytime you do that, you're back on the surface level of the mind, which is where most people live. And it's a rocky road, you just cannot operate and access what you already own from that level. So just sitting there, letting it unfold. If you hit the slappy toe shot around, it's still going forward. You just focus on the next shot. It's cliche, but how I do that is I stay on the couch and I don't get up off the couch and try and fix the swing. So that's the biggest thing during the good rounds that I feel.
And so at the end of the round, right, you're probably knowing that you're got a great chance of winning, right? Of having the lowest score. What did you do at the end? I mean, maybe it's just staying on the couch again near the end, where you're thinking it's going to happen, and contrasting that with what you would do before you learned about fluid motion. Yeah,
so that's a good point. Just letting it happen, and that comes from the acceptance and knowing that the swing doesn't break down. So 5 years ago, I would have been even more tense and worried that, the swing might break down on the last hole. But I know that the 16th hole has no resemblance to the 18th hole. Every shot stands on its own integrity. Every shot is different. Every moment's different. So, I just kind of say to myself, whatever, okay, whatever. And
that's a great word. I like that.
In the mind. Yeah, like whatever's great, because, and think about, the listeners can relate. The good rounds or the good shots come from when you kind of give up. You're like, I'm done. And then all of a sudden you start hitting 3 or 4 great golf shots. Well, that's just because you lowered your expectations. You started going to deeper levels of the mind. Everything became softer. And there you go. You get it back.
Yeah. Fabulous. That's great. Well, talk a little bit, as we're kind of nearing the end, a few success stories. I mean, just some, and it could be high-level players, low-level players, but, some things where you really sat back afterwards and said, wow, this person, they just sort of changed what happened for them, right? I think that's really where it's at when something works, that, their golfing life is a little bit different, right? Yeah,
and I guess, I see it daily, and the same reaction. The look on people's faces when I tell them that once the swing is grooved and once you deposit enough reps, it doesn't break down. And that look of shock and almost relief is really cool, because they're, for the first time in their life, realizing that maybe what I have is good enough. I just have to, tweak it here and there and do some maintenance work instead of reinventing the wheel. So that's good. And then I've had one thing that sticks out. I had a guy, I just gave him an hour lesson. He didn't come for the fluid motion factor program. I just snuck it in there, and he loved it. He went home and he wrote me a handwritten letter, which I've never had happen before, which was pretty cool. He just said how it changed his complete, way of thinking about golf. So I enjoyed that one.
How about juniors a little bit? Are juniors more easily accepting of some of the things or less, or are there any differences with them, or is it just portraying, what's already there and they'll just jump right in?
Yeah, the juniors are great because, the whole essence of the program is innocence and doing nothing, not something, right? We're always trying to do something, but when you graduate through the program, you'll find, I'm actually doing nothing. So the juniors are closer to that level than we are as adults because their intellect hasn't developed as much as ours, so they have less thoughts about the swing itself. They just stand there and do it. So they can relate to it a little bit quicker than some adults. But it's great teaching them because it's, you modify the program for them a little bit. You don't get too involved in the terminology and things, but they're already halfway there. So that's what I love about it. It works for any level of play and any age.
Yeah, well, that's great. Well, any final words then for golfers? I mean, just a few things, without, obviously it's great if people get the chance to do the full fluid motion factor program, but just a few things they can do pretty easily right now, tomorrow, and keep doing them that will just kind of make their golfing lives easier and help them to play a little better.
Yeah. So we'll want freedom when we swing, and that ultimately leads to increasing your chances to hitting better golf shots. So one thing I like to do is not hit a golf shot to no target. So you're just standing there and just swinging. I mean, I picture like I'm swinging into an ocean. That's my one thought. I'm trying to hit this ball into the ocean. And how vast is the ocean? You cannot miss it. So that itself creates wholeness, which if you go through the program, that you'll hear that word a lot. You want to create wholeness, which is the togetherness of all the parts. So hitting into an ocean creates wholeness. Go hit to a target, no target, and just alternate between the two. And compare the feeling you have with a target and without. And while you're comparing, you're not overanalyzing, you're just acknowledging, I felt different there. And over time, that feeling of freedom you have with no target will bleed into when you're standing there with a target. And that's what we want, because in golf, the target, it's a target sport, the target breaks wholeness.
It drives us crazy, right?
Right. So that's a good one. And then another cool one to try is you break the swing into 3 parts. Part 1 is when you're over the ball and you're about to initiate the move. Part 2 is the motion itself. And then part 3 is the finish. So you want to feel the same in part 1 as you do in part 3. And again, you just observe how you feel. You're not overanalyzing. You're just passively observing how position 1 felt versus position 3. And that's a good one to try on the range.
And then you could take that on the course too, right? If you really
absolutely, yeah.
You start getting those feelings, you can realize, well, why not, right? And
right, and yeah.
Well, Craig,
yeah, these are abstract thoughts, and we're so enamored with concrete thoughts. I have to access this part of the swing. The swing has to be in this position. When you start using these cues, it really softens the mind, and everything just becomes so much easier.
Well, that's a great way to end. And thanks for, that's some just really terrific. So many people think when they go down to the range, if they're really going to practice, they have to have these super specific targets. And having targets is good, but having targets where you're feeling softness can be better, right?
Right, exactly.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to put notes in the show notes to the podcast for the basic fluid motion factor things, but also for where you are. I'm sure people who get to see you get a lot more than they bargained for, which is really, really terrific. And, it's kind of cool that you're still getting, even though you're teaching a lot, still getting to play golf at a pretty high level when you get to it. And I know it's because of all the things you've learned from Steve and learn for yourself too.
Yeah, absolutely. His program has had the most profound impact on my game. And I had some pretty good instruction. Well, so he's helped me tremendously.
Yeah. Well, Craig, hang in a minute here at the end, but I know you're about to go on a lesson tee here probably in about 10 or 15 minutes, but thanks for doing this, and I'm looking forward to making this interview live on Monday.
Oh, my pleasure, Tony. I enjoyed it. Thank you.
Take care.
Game Improvement Golf. I create exceptional golf clubs. You shoot lower scores.
Well, Craig, thanks for this great interview, and keep doing great things for golfers. Some interviews last longer than this one did, but I'm really glad this was less than 30 minutes because I hope many of you will take the time to listen to it more than once, to pick up some of the great little nuggets Craig shared, like talking about creating innocence, seeing what happens, taking away layers, and accepting all results. Craig teaches golf at the Touche Performance Golf Facility in Fort Wayne, Indiana. I put links in the show notes to the Fluid Motion Factor program website, to the Touche facility, and also to how you can contact Craig on Instagram. And if you're personally interested in learning more about how to apply the Fluid Motion Factor to your game, let me know. I've had some great success doing it in my game, and I need to start sharing more about what I know about it to help others play great golf. So a little bit about my prostate surgery recovery, which has gone amazingly well. I have little by little been working to swing a golf club at closer to full speed without hurting myself. Just for fun, I tested my swing speed this weekend, and it's 78 miles an hour. And that's more than 10 mile an hour slower than before the surgery. But I know little by little I get there, and it's more important to ease up on it, ease into it, to swinging faster and not hurt myself. So my shout out today is for everyone who reached out to me the last 6 weeks with prayers, books to read, pies to eat, and with encouragement. I've been amazed again at how well my recovery has gone, and I know that all the prayers and encouragement made a big difference. Well, that's it for today. In 2 weeks, I welcome back Master Putter Fitter Bruce Rarick from Burnt Edges Consulting to talk about a fun and not often discussed subject, putter hosel designs and how they influence putting performance. I'm really excited Bruce agreed to come back and share his knowledge with you. See you in 2 weeks.
Game Improvement Golf, your source of information and inspiration to become an exceptional golfer now. www.gameimprovementgolf.com